Balake. Where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Ron.
Ron is here along with Natalie from Scientology Life After a Cult. Welcome.
Aloha.
Aloha. For anyone not yet familiar, you can find Natalie's channel right here. Scientology Life After a Cult. Oh, let's do this. Let's do this view. It's been a while since I've done the close-up view.
Yeah, I've been doing the close-up view because the people demand it. They seem to like it better. So you tell us in the chat, y'all like the close-up view better? I don't, but I'm all for what you guys like. I'm all about providing the experience for people that come on over.
It's funny, as a creator, I prefer the other view where we're zoomed out like this. But when I'm watching other channels and they're doing the zoomed up view, as a viewer, I like this better. So I'm not sure why I feel differently about it.
Yeah, I like it too.
So I think we had like a whole mess of topics that we wanted to discuss on this video, potentially kind of like what we did on our last stream, where we just kind of went over a whole bunch of different things.
Yeah.
But as we were talking about it, we kind of focused in on maybe a primary subject that on my channel, I have called this video, "Why Can't Tom Cruise Mind His Own Business?" And what did you call this video on your channel?
What did I call it on my channel? I think I called it "Why Tom Cruise Rather Have You Dead Than Incapable."
Okay, so but the inspiration for this was us talking about this phenomena that I guess you see it from Scientologists, but you certainly see it from former Scientologists, where how would you describe it?
I would describe it as there is this phenomena in Scientology, and sometimes it sticks with people even after they've left Scientology, where I refer to it a little bit like a main character syndrome, because in Scientology, and especially in the Sea organization, we were indoctrinated and made to believe that any outpoint or thing that we see wrong, we have to handle it. We have to do something about it, that it is on us. It is our responsibility, no matter where we are or who's in charge, that somehow we have a right to interfere or change the environment or whatever it is for people not asking for our help at all.
That's right. That is right. And it's funny, as you start kicking around this idea and examples of it, I'm very quickly reminded of Tom Cruise in his crazy black turtleneck video with the Mission Impossible theme going on in the background, making this weird comment about, as a Scientologist, it's not the same. When you drive by an accident, you know you're the only one who can help. And to normal people watching that video, they'd be like, what is he even talking about? Like, honestly, what does that mean? Yeah. As a Scientologist, I didn't wonder what he meant. It actually made perfect sense to me. Yeah. But it's an example of what we're talking about here. Main character syndrome. You can't let anything go by. Everything is your business. Everything requires you to involve yourself and speak on it, or defend someone who's never asked for it, or condemn someone who's got nothing to do with you, or things like this. And we were kicking around, you know, which pieces of Scientology is it that creates this mindset? And I think there's more than one answer. What did you think was the primary answer?
For me, the first thing that came to mind, because in my experience of being in the Sea organization, when I look back on where I got that idea, but I was exposed to the Sea Org, well, like you were, we were teenagers, and those formative years, and being told that, you know, we have the only technology. It's part of the competence of being a Sea Org member, which might have even been in one of the, you know, the boot camp courses that Sea Org members do, where they orient you to, you know, if you see an outpoint, you have to do something about it. If you see somebody behaving in a way that's unbecoming of a Sea Org member or violating the rules, you have to snitch on them. You have to go tell people. Like, it's so insidious. It took me years. I'm talking a long time. And maybe even if I'm being honest, I feel like I only recently came to this conclusion. I'm going to share it here right now. I am not here to save the planet. I am not here to really save anybody except myself, watch out for my family. And if I can help some people along the way, if I can shed light on an insidious cult like Scientology and other ones, and that somehow helps people, good. But I'm just a kind of like a cog in the wheel. There's nothing earth shattering that I'm doing that I feel like is really, I have this huge responsibility to save the planet like we did when we were in the Sea Org and as Scientologists. That took me a long time to really be like, yeah, nah.
That's interesting, because how you just expressed that is also how I feel about YouTube and what we're doing here on YouTube. I know some people go, this is a deadly serious activity we're involved in. And I go, no, it's not. This is not serious. The world would keep on turning if I stopped and we all stopped. And, not a deadly serious activity. We're here to have fun. We're here to get out information. We will, along the way, help a lot of people, Scientologists and non-Scientologists. And I'm not here to save the world. I'm not here to save Scientologists. I'm here to put out information on YouTube the way I want to, in the way I want to, for my own reasons. And there will be beneficial carry-on effects, but I'm not here to save the world or Scientologists. And
was that a change, or was that something that changed later, or was it always? What about when you were in the Sea organization? Did you feel like that, when we were told, like, we were like, we're saving the planet, we're doing these things because every man, woman, and child depends on what we do here and now in Scientology?
100%. As a Sea Org member, I took it very, very, very seriously. And I took that, that information that you're indoctrinated in from L. Ron Hubbard about spectatorism being a bad thing. Like, spectatorism is a slur in Scientology. It means you see things happening and you just assume someone else is taking care of it. And it's actually the only way I could go about being a Sea Org member and want to keep being there, was to actually take what I was doing seriously. Like, if I was just going to do it haphazardly, I would just leave. Like, why bother being there if you weren't going to take it seriously? Yeah. I did see so many other Sea Org members who clearly did not want to be there and did not take it seriously. And I always ask myself, actually, I would not ask myself, I would actually say to them, like, particularly if some of them were my juniors, and if we were having like sort of a tough talk, I'd be the guy who'd be like, I don't understand why you're here. Why don't you just leave the Sea Org? I wasn't the guy trying to hold on to Sea Org members. I was like, I don't understand it. You don't really seem to be with the program. I go, then why are you here? Leave, go do something else. So I did take it very, very seriously. And it's one of the reasons I wrote so many reports when I was in the Sea Org.
Oh, you were a report writer?
Oh, hundreds of reports. It's because I'm like, it's a deadly serious activity. We have a brief breath in eternity. Yeah. If we don't, we have the chances are small that we will even make it. But if we do, well, because of the hard work of a dedicated few, and you're doing yourself and your coworkers a favor by putting in ethics and enforcing discipline on a one-on-one basis, peer-to-peer enforcement of discipline, not expecting all the discipline to come from the top down. Not, discipline meaning like just putting in order and compliance and all that stuff. Like, I took it very seriously. Yeah.
Like, it was your job to make sure people stayed on the rails.
Yes.
Yeah. Or we're getting in that keeping Scientology keeping Scientology working policy and rules about it. Like, it was your duty to, I get it. That's I think it's a cult thing too. I've seen that in some other cults where it's, what you said about it being a deadly serious game. I mean, L. Ron Hubbard says that. So why wouldn't we not think that it was? And we had to believe it was a deadly serious game. Otherwise, why were we giving up having lives, being able to go on vacation or have children, all of the things to sacrifice that? If you're going to do it, you better be there because you have some higher purpose or reason for doing so. I think it's just eventually, I think we realized that it's BS. It's just not true. It's not what we were actually doing. But letting go of that mentality of having to report on people and tell people what to do and think you know better than everybody else, I feel like is a journey out of that cult mentality.
Absolutely. Or how about, I mean, this is sort of a piece of that, of always trying to organize something, always trying to
Mm.
take something that's just organically being what it is and trying to make it into something different, or make it into something better, or improve it, or
Yeah.
streamline it. And it's like, why? Let it be what it is. Not
Mhm.
everyone has to be doing the same thing. Not everyone has to be doing it.
Hmm?
Why do I hear something?
What do you hear?
Hold on. Okay. I don't know.
Mm.
Um, Shit, what was I saying? Oh, not everyone has to be doing the same thing. Not everyone has to be doing it for the same reason. There doesn't have to be coordination. I've seen an effort in our community to take what is just an organic thing that exists, a bunch of individuals, and just insisting it has to be coordinated, or a group, or it has to be guided, or it has to be led, or there has to be a purpose. And I go, no, no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. As seriously as I took being in the Sea Org, or took my job as a Sea Org member, the moment I left the Sea Org, I didn't have any of that anymore. I just, it made no difference to me. I mean, I wasn't even for the years that I was technically a public Scientologist, I didn't even consider myself really a public Scientologist. It was just like a default thing of like, well, that's what I am because I'm not staff and I'm not Sea Org. But I feel like there's so many tangents I could get into, but here's one, because I'm sure not everyone has heard me say this. Even when I was on post as the TechSec Echo Day,
Mhm.
you know, at that point, well, at the point of this story, I probably would have been maybe 24 years old. I'd been
Mhm.
basically working for Scientology full time since I was like 12. I'd never been a public. Uh, And I remember, and I'm now a Sea Org member, a billion years working for this organ. And I remember sitting there, I was waiting for course to get out. I was in the hallway because I was going to have to do a briefing to all the students when they got out of course. And I remember asking myself, if I wasn't in the Sea Org, if I was one of these public in these course rooms, would I spend $1 of my money or 1 minute of my time schlepping in here to sit down in one of these chairs in one of these course rooms just to study an LRH book with a course supervisor peering over my shoulder, constantly stopping me to find a misunderstood word, giving me spot checks, giving me meter checks, getting started checkouts? And I thought to myself, not in a million fucking years would I come in here and pay to do a Scientology course. And you'd think, well, that must have been an eye opener for you, right? You must
Yeah.
have left shortly
Yeah.
after that. No, not at all.
What do you think? What kept you there then at that point? Because that's kind of the whole point of doing it.
One, inertia.
Yeah.
It's just so easier to keep doing what you're doing. Like if I put myself right back into that mindset, I'm thinking, sure, if I was a public, I wouldn't pay to do this stuff. And then I go, but I'm not a public. I'm a
Mm.
Sea Org member.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter that I wouldn't come in and pay for this stuff. These people would.
Yeah.
And as long as they're here, my job is pretty easy enough. Make sure they get their courses, make sure they get their auditing. I'm married. My family's in Scientology. Her family's in Scientology. Plus, I just knew I could never, ever, ever bring myself to
Mhm.
walk down to HCO and say, I don't want to be here anymore. I just didn't even have it in me. I knew it could never even be possible to just say that. And so it was kind of a dilemma, but it was also a dilemma. I didn't spend a lot of time dwelling on it because as a Sea Org member, you've got so much demands on your time. It's easy not to dwell on things.
How did you, so if you, at that point though, when you're thinking that, how did you end up then actually leaving? Because you left, you didn't blow, right? I mean, you left properly because you were in good standing Scientologist after that. So
That's
how
right.
did you actually, because you would have had to have gone in and say, I don't want to be here anymore.
Right. And so that happened after Heather got pregnant,
That's
where we
right.
didn't have to say, or I didn't have to say, because also prior to the pregnancy, if, when I said I could never bring myself to go there and say, I don't want to be here anymore, that would imply I was leaving by myself.
Mm, Yeah.
Never mind the fact that in order to do that, I would have to basically tell my wife that I was leaving her just because I couldn't handle being in the Sea Org anymore. And
Yeah.
none of that made sense to me. So early on in my Sea Org career, I was the tech sec at ASHO and Heather was the senior LRH host PAC. At some point, she got busted out of CMO and became a course supervisor at ASHO Day.
Mm-hmm.
And then I sort of got busted off post as tech sec ASHO and became the lower level cramming officer AOLA. So we were both doing jobs we did not really like.
Mm.
And it was becoming more and more clear to each of us that the other one would be amenable to leaving. If one of us wanted to leave, the other one would be amenable to leaving. And even then, we never actually had a conversation about it. We never had a conversation about it.
Yeah, I know that dance. You just did the dance of, let's see if we don't take action to not be pregnant, just roll the dice, see if anybody says anything about it.
Yep. Let's do one little thing and see if there's any sign of objection. Oop, no sign of objection. Let's proceed. Okay, still no sign of objection. Let's proceed. And then one morning, honestly, I think it was one morning while getting ready for a post that she basically said, I think I might be pregnant. And I was like, oh my God, are you serious? But it was this unspoken like enthusiasm about it. Like she didn't even say it like she was afraid of the response. She was like, I think I'm pregnant.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God. And so then when she confirmed it, we had a little celebration in the room with some Diet Coke and some sushi, which is about as much of a celebration as you can have in the Sea Org. Picked up from Rite Aid, of course. We're talking grocery store sushi here. And
I didn't even know Rite Aid made sushi. I don't know if I'd be getting in on that.
And so literally the next morning after morning muster at AOLA, I just walked right into the Dur INR's office and sat down. I said, Heather's pregnant. We're not getting an abortion. And without batting an eye, she was like, okay, here's the leaving staff routing form. And I was instantly taken to my room to change into messed work clothes. And I was routed down to the basement and introduced to the person who was going to oversee me doing the physical labor that I was going to be assigned to while waiting for further action. But literally, it's like I was a pretty well-regarded Sea Org member in that org. And literally people were like, is this a joke? Like, what? He's leaving? You know? Yeah. And I was like, that's right, motherfuckers. I'm out of here.
Yeah. I'm not doing this anymore. One of the biggest references that gets pulled out, I know it's one that I felt, well, every major course has Keeping Scientology Working in it. And there's parts of it that get pulled out and used when we start saying we want to leave or we're having doubts. And it's part of the brainwashing to reframe it all for us. And I think parts of that policy letter are some of the most dangerous things in Scientology when it comes to the mindset. And I feel like it's a spectrum in Scientology. You have public Scientologists who are, dedicated. And then you have staff members who are more dedicated. Then you have Sea Org members. And that's where it becomes fanatical and zealot. And the higher you go up in the Sea organization, the more ruthless and intense you become. And in my opinion, the higher up you go in the Sea Org, the more dangerous you become because you follow Keeping Scientology Working to the letter. And I think there's some pieces of that we could probably read to people and they'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
That's right. That's right. And I do want to share that. Oh, it looks like I nixed my screen share. So let me bring it up here. For me, so we'll show everyone, afterwards, I probably put a link to this policy letter in the video description. And in case anyone wants to see, like, this is the #1 brainwashing policy letter in all of Scientology.
Yeah.
And it's the first policy in every single course of Scientology, every major course. And it literally, the policy begins by him saying, this is the most important policy. And it talks about what a Scientologist needs to do in order to make sure Scientology continues working forever. Okay. And it's 10 points of KSW. Almost every Scientologist learns these verbatim. And, in the crazy Tom Cruise turtleneck video, when he says, for me, it's all about KSW. This is what he's talking about. He's talking about these 10 points of keeping Scientology working. and what they mean and everything L. Ron Hubbard says in this policy. Now, the last 4 points of these 10 points are the key. So, okay, in order to keep Scientology working, first of all, you have to have the correct technology. You have to know the technology. You have to know that it is correct. You have to teach it correctly. You have to apply it correctly. You have to make sure it's correctly applied. And then these last four are the ones that are the reason Tom Cruise cannot mind his own business. Okay.
Exactly.
7, hammering out of existence incorrect technology, knocking out incorrect applications, closing the door on any possibility of incorrect technology, closing the door on incorrect application. L. Ron Hubbard goes on to say that the only reason Scientology ever fails is because people don't do 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then he goes on to explain why people don't do 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay. And in this explanation, he says, the one that's always stuck with me is B. Further, the not too bright have a bad point on the button self-importance. Now, some might interpret that to mean people who are stupid have a problem thinking they're way more important than they are. But a comprehensive understanding of this policy letter actually indicates that what it means is the problems that people have in applying 7, 8, 9, and 10 is they don't think they are important. They always leave it to someone else. Someone else is going to I'm scrolling up. Yeah. Someone else is going to hammer out of existence incorrect technology. Someone else is going to knock out incorrect applications. Someone else is going to close the door on any possibility of incorrect technology. And someone else is going to close the door on incorrect application. So this for me, there's many, many, many parts of Scientology where someone could take away from it. Oh my God, it's my job. Everything's my job. Everything's my job. For me, this was the most salient one. Because first of all, you read this fucking policy letter like several dozen times a year, you know, and you demo it and you get checked out on it. And, you know, after the Tom Cruise video, what did David Miscavige make everybody do? He made everyone in the world reread and check out on this policy.
That's right.
And so this idea, especially when you have Tom Cruise going, for me, it's all about KSW. And I've gotten rid of spectatorism in my environment. You're either on the playing field or you're out of the stadium or something like this.
Yeah, that's what he said.
It essentially means everything is your business and your responsibility and requires your attention. Because if you don't do it, then why would you expect anyone else to do it?
Exactly. And it's your responsibility. And if you don't do it, then you're a bunch of, and I'm quoting here, panty waist dilettantes, which is what L. Ron Hubbard says in that specific part of like, this is then if you're not 100% fiercely a tiger. And he talks about too, being a tiger, which is where I think, like I said, I feel like that amps up the higher you go in Scientology, from public person to staff to Sea Org to higher in the Sea Org. And it's part of why I never wanted to be anybody in the Sea Org. I wanted to stay in the estates organization if I could help it, because I didn't want to be a tiger. It wasn't in my nature. I'm more like, I don't know, a parrot. You know, I'm just like a colorful bird just looking for a good time, not a tiger. And that is what we were expected to be in the Sea Org because of that Keeping Scientology Working policy letter, in part.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're putting waste dilettantes.
Yeah. Did you have a problem? I know you said only recently you sort of realized, or well, I don't know if you said how recently, like you're not here to save the world. How long did it take you to get out of this mindset? And what do you think it is that helped you get out of it?
I think it took about 12 years, which I find interesting because a cult expert said it takes on average 12 and a half years to recover from Scientology. And then you're still not like you're like 100%, you know, it's never going to affect you again. So honestly, it's been in the last few years. And I really think it was Tony getting sick. For people who don't know, I lost my partner for a little over 4 months ago after a almost 3-year cancer battle. And that just put so much in perspective for me, because I'm like, wait a minute. Not that when I left Scientology, I wasn't trying to save the world anymore, but I still felt that like, am I supposed to be taking more responsibility? You know what I'm saying? And the crazy thing is, it hit me like, what am I actually doing with my life? What really is important? And it reframed all of that for me. And it still is now that I'm dealing with like, what do I need? What's important for myself? And I realized like, I don't need to save everybody. So in other words, I left Scientology, but there's a piece of that that didn't leave where I would go into, I'd be in the doctor's office and feel like I had to straighten the magazines on the table. I mean, it's a little stupid thing, but I felt like if I see an out point, I have to correct it. And it was only when I got to a point in my life where I didn't have the bandwidth to do that. I was so overwhelmed. And then it felt like things were just falling apart. And that as I was putting it back together, I went, whoa, wait a minute here. I don't think I do need to save anybody. I don't think that that whole, like the planet, all of mankind in the Sea organization, I believe that's what we were doing. And it is incredibly freeing to sit here today and say, I'm not saving the planet. I am one person doing what I'm doing, and I want to help people along the way and expose Scientology. But it's not on me to save the planet. And honestly, it's not on me to save anybody. It's
That's
not
right.
on any of us.
That's
So
right.
why do we feel like we have, or used to, at least for me? And I've seen this in even people who've never been in Scientology sometimes. And I have found that interesting. Like, why do you feel it's like you have to go, like you see something wrong, you have to fix it. You have to. I mean, I've seen people do some crazy things, change lighting at parties that, it's like, that's not your house. Or feel like I need to go talk to that person. Or, okay, the best examples I can think of are ex-Scientologists who go to work in companies, non-Scientology companies. I've seen this happen. And they go in and they want to change things to make it better because they know better. And it's going to be this way because they have to fix it because something's not going right or it's out pointy. And I don't know. In the last few years, I've just like, not my monkey, not my circus. If you need help, you want to talk or something like that, I'm all for that. But it's much more that one-on-one. And then as a whole on YouTube, I love when people get stuff out of my content in whatever way that it helps them. But it's not my job to save them.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. The other interesting thing about still having that idea that it's so important is that the fact that Scientologists think that what they're doing is so important is how they justify all the horrible things that they do to people and families.
Yeah.
Is because nothing's more important than the mission.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it though? Sure. If your mission really is saving all beings in this sector of the Galactic Confederacy, fine. If you've convinced yourself that's your mission, yes, nothing's more important than the mission. But that's not the world we live in. We live in the real world.
Yeah.
And yeah.
It is interesting how that's hard to let go of for some people.
Yeah. I think it is dangerous. I mean, not in like a menacing way, but in just I'll just use the word dangerous, to have a very overinflated sense of the importance or value of what you're doing. Like, just be realistic about it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of, I think, what the struggle is sometimes, and where I've had friends who've left the Sea Org, and that was something that some of them struggled with as well. I've got this job here, but I feel like I should be doing more, or they're still on this mission. I think that we can have a purpose in life and something that drives us, but it doesn't need to be this single thing you focus on mission. And I think that's something, I don't know about you, but I still struggle like finding that, and I think we all do, balance with even, the work life kind of a balance on. It's equally important to spend time, if not more important, with my family and people I care about than doing work. I need to work because I like having a place to live and food to eat and clothes to wear. But sometimes that's just all it is, and having that time with people. That's what we were denied, in my mind, in the Sea organization, and being away from our families and not have that Like even something as simple as time with your family. I think about the things that I did with my kids that I never did with my mom or my parents. I mean, I was working full time in the family business at 12 and then off to, training in Los Angeles at 15 to be a staff member and a warrior for Scientology. So we were really made to believe that from a young age, and it carried over for so long. And that I can see getting into trouble because that programming would come back in of even what you were saying about being like the policing people. Like
Yeah.
it's just not, and it's so crazy. Like that's not a thing. Like unless they're my children, it's like, hey, not my monkey, not my circus there. If I can help or if you'd like my help, oh my God, I have the perfect example. You ever see that commercial? I think it's a Progressive insurance commercial where you're becoming your parents and the guy's going around trying to give advice in the Costco parking lot or help people move when they're driving and they start directing people, oh, just go more this way. It's like, no. If someone didn't ask for your help, then you can just keep walking. It's okay.
I think I have seen that one. What were some of the other topics that we had talked about touching on?
This whole thing too with, I think it comes from exactly what we're talking about, is then what ends up happening is you have a lack of boundaries. Because if you are on a mission to save the planet and you believe that your mission is more important than family, than enjoyment, than anything else, than relationships, than children, that it justifies doing things that are horrible, doing things that are, like nasty actions. And I feel so then when we go out into the world, if you still have that viewpoint, how can you have healthy boundaries between you and other people? Because you're either going to be obsessively trying to fix everybody, or, you know what I'm saying? Or think that everybody should be allowed to fix you. I've definitely seen that too, kind of a lack of boundaries of like, well, here, case in point, right? Like, I'm not your mom, Aaron. I'm not your keeper. You're not mine. It's one thing when you have friends and stuff where you talk about things or you might talk through some things, but in the ex-Scientology world, in the Scientology world, my Scientology friends, when I was in Scientology, were so up in my business to make sure that I was maintaining that Scientology viewpoint that it made me feel that I couldn't have any privacy, that there's nothing I could keep to myself. And how could we? We had somebody doing room inspections every week, going through our stuff, telling us what we can and can't have in our room, telling us what we can and can't have in terms of pictures of our own families. So how do you leave that with any type of idea of what a healthy boundary looks like? You don't.
That's right. There is a thing I've personally experienced this where, because in Scientology, it's you're so used to being told that if you don't want to answer a personally invasive question, it's because there's something you're hiding.
Yeah.
Whereas that translates into the real world, into actually not being able to recognize what healthy boundaries are. Like, it's okay for there to be things that are no one's business.
Yeah. And it's okay to not know everybody's business. That is so foreign in Scientology, because what you were saying earlier, we would report on each other. We would write knowledge reports, things that shouldn't be because people were violating policy or not doing what we felt they should be doing in alignment with that policy of keeping Scientology working, which is the same one where L. Ron Hubbard says, we rather have you dead than incapable. That is the viewpoint. If you are a Tom Cruise level Scientologist, you rather have people dead than incapable. Like, that's exactly what it says.
That's right. And that's what you called your video.
Yeah.
And let's pull up, let's pull up that quote in Keeping Scientology Working right here. This is, not one namby-pamby bunch of panty-waist dilettantes have ever made anything. It's a tough universe. The social veneer makes it seem mild, but only the tigers survive, and even they have a hard time. We'll survive because we're tough and dedicated. When we do instruct someone properly, he becomes more and more tiger. When we instruct, half-mindedly, are afraid to offend, scared to enforce. We don't make students into good Scientologists, and that lets everybody down. The proper instruction attitude is you're here, so you're a Scientologist. Now we're going to make you into an expert auditor no matter what happens. We would rather have you dead than incapable. Fit that into the economics of the situation and the lack of adequate time, and you see the cross we have to bear. Oh, that sounds very serious.
Yeah, exactly. And we were told that every single time you do a new service in Scientology, you have to read that. Or if you get in trouble, you have to do clay demos of this to get us to believe that we have to sacrifice all of this stuff. We have to give up our lives for the next billion years because our mission is so important. I think about that now and I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, half the time I'm like, I can barely, like, my mission today is to make my bed and wear pants when I leave the house. That is my mission. It's a win if I can do that. And then, my God, I'm still wearing pajama pants right now. I'm only half dressed because I'm not leaving the house. And I still think that that's a win.
Hold on. Irina has a hilarious comment. The only tigers survive. Hilarious, seeing how real tigers are critically endangered.
Exactly. That's the whole point. And I realized, like, I never wanted to be a tiger. And that's why I was a sucky Sea Org member. I was getting in trouble for joking and degrading because I thought too many things were funny. That's what I'm saying. I just did not fit in that environment. And then when I was a Scientologist afterwards, and I went on and I did the bridge after the Sea Org. So that's a little different too. A lot of people leave the Sea Org and they never do anything again. I left the Sea Org and got up through operating Thetan level 4 like a freaking idiot. But my family, that's where my family was at. My mom was at the top of the bridge. It was just what we do. My husband at the time, that was the big push. That's what we do. That just seemed like the thing to do. But I didn't like who I was, even outside of the Sea Org. And in large part, because of that policy letter, because of keeping Scientology working and thinking that if I'm not a tiger, if I'm not this tough, hardcore person, then I'm a piece of shit. Then I'm a panty waist dilettante, like L. Ron Hubbard said. I have to be a tiger. And it's just not who I am as a person. And since leaving Scientology and moving beyond it, I'm like, you know what? No, I am a panty waist dilettante. Per how they look at it, I'm not a tiger like in that way. Don't get it twisted though. I will cut you. If I have to, I can be tiger. But it's just not my default.
Yeah. This thing about boundaries and invading people's privacy, this is very much pushed with Scientology fundraisers and registrars that you have to invade their privacy if you care about them.
Mm-hmm. Like that's per policy
people,
right there.
Yeah. Like people who have back off, like, I don't know, it seems impolite. It seems rude. It's like, if you don't want to invade their privacy, you don't care enough about them to break through their brick overcoat of resistance and their social veneer. And if you really cared about salvaging that being, you would invade their privacy.
Yeah.
And so it's weird. The no boundaries thing very much goes both ways.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And
you have to be willing to do it, and you have to be willing to be on the receiving end of it. You have to be willing to, they're helping you if they're invading your privacy. It's because they care. It's part of that twisted way of thinking in Scientology. And what makes so many of us oversharers afterwards. And as we learn about boundaries, as we learn, and that's been a big thing for me, is learning that, hey, you can ask me whatever you want, but it doesn't mean I'm going to answer you. It doesn't mean that I have to answer you. Just like if I ask a question of someone, they're under no requirement to answer. But in Scientology, we have to. It's not a choice. We have to answer the question, and we have to answer it honestly. Mankind depends on it.
Yeah. God, it's hard to believe sometimes how crazy and obsessed and extreme that Scientology viewpoint really was. I feel very grateful that the posts that I was on allowed me to avoid having to involve myself in that. Mostly, right?
Which
Because
post?
just technical delivery posts,
Okay.
just course, just Division 4 posts.
Yeah.
Because like this whole invading the privacy thing, it seems like you're dealing mostly with fundraisers, registrars, and ethics officers, and perhaps sec checkers and auditors,
Mhm.
of which I never had to be one of those. And I do remember feeling like and knowing that I was lucky to not have to do those posts, because that's where it feels really dirty.
Yeah.
Or at least I would have felt dirty.
Oh yeah.
I didn't even like selling my students the books that they were required to have on their check sheets. Like that's a get out of jail free card for a supervisor. Oh, sorry, the check sheet says you need to have it. Go downstairs and get your book. I was like, oh, but I know we've got the books on the shelves. Why would I tell them they have to get their own? I know they really don't need it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. No, I totally do. And you have to, and they would do drills. They do drills in Scientology of invading privacy. Especially to me, the worst, the International Association of Scientologists, those registrars, I think were some of the worst when they would try to get money out of people, because you're not giving money for services. You're not giving money for something in Scientology that you're going to get. You are strictly donating funds. And the manipulation around that is that they would tell you these horror stories where you basically would believe that if I don't give them $5,000 today to fight psychiatry, my children are going to be put on psych drugs, and then they can never do Scientology, and that will be the end of it. They were so extreme with their fear, the fear tactic that they used. And it's so manipulative to do that. I always thought even at the time, I thought it was gross, and it made me uncomfortable, even though I was in Scientology for that long. And I think it's one of the biggest thing that Scientologists in good standing disagree with is the level of request for money and the lack of boundary around that. Registrars will outright say, well, let me see your credit cards. Let me see your credit cards. Show me your credit cards. They were all about that. Show me the money. Show me your credit cards. We'll call for you. They would call and get people's limits raised so they could spend more on Scientology.
Yeah. I like that. Show me the MasterCard.
Tom Cruise in that Jerry Maguire movie where he does the, show me the money. I think he was channeling Scientology. They would show up to get that money. I remember more than one time, being in the car on the weekend with my family when I was married and in Scientology in good standing. And we go to a movie and come home and I'd see the car outside my house and knew, oh, heck, it's a Scientology registrar. We would just keep driving. Just like we're going to another movie. Yeah. Parked at the house waiting for us. I lived in a cul-de-sac. So it was like we'd go home and I would always be like, oh, I got to watch. If I knew they were in town, especially the Flag World Tour, the International Association of Scientologists, any visiting organization, if you don't show up at the org, they would come out to your house. My children, we had a drill we practiced in my house. And this is when I was in good standing with Scientology. Knock at the door. Hide behind the couch, hit the floor, because I was home with my kids for many years. I was a stay-at-home mom. So I could see them coming. It just constantly put me on edge and gave me a complex about people coming to the door that to this day, it's better, but I still struggle with it.
Wow. Guys, no matter whether you're watching on my channel or Natalie's channel, if you're watching right now, do us a favor and hit that like button. Okay, so the thing that you just mentioned about actually having to hide from the fundraisers. See, that is something that even in the years that I spent as a default public, 2006 to 2014, I never had to deal with that because I was ex-SO. I had paid off my free letter debt, but I hadn't finished my lower conditions. So what are they going to come to me for?
But they wouldn't go to you for donations though?
You know what? Now that I think about it, they should have been able to, because
Yeah,
someone an
they'll
XSO
still
in their
take your
lower
money.
conditions, that's like prime picking for, give us money so that you can get out of your lower conditions.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, never once did I have anyone ever visit me and try to get a donation.
And
The
you lived
most
in Clearwater?
in Clearwater, yeah, the whole time. At one point, Flag got so desperate to have students in the course rooms that they were allowing XSO members who had not finished the lower conditions to go on course.
That's so squirrel. Oh my gosh.
and because they were making this allowance, you would have like a huge target on you if you said no. So, and remember, they were getting everyone enrolled on the basic books courses.
Yeah.
So I went into the Coachman and started on the Dianetics book course, not the Dianetics seminar, not the Dianetics auditor, just the book course.
Mm-hmm.
And the most uncomfortable thing that ever happened was at the end of the course period. It was shortly before the IAS event. And I think the base had like a $25 million target. And they basically weren't letting anyone out of the course room until they made a donation to the IAS. And I remember I donated like $25.
Mm-hmm.
And I was almost like, I was just annoyed that I had to give anything at all. And they were disgusted that I only gave $25. And I'm like, it's that or zero. Like, I don't want to give you anything at all. And that was it. Literally never had anyone visiting me trying to sell me auditing courses or an IAS donation.
Wow, we had them all the time. But it was, my husband, he got into Scientology as an adult, my second husband. And he was already, I think, what was his status in the International Association of Scientologists? I think he was a patron. So it's like he already was a sucker for that. Like it was one thing to pay for services, like things I was going to do. I knew we had to pay for, but I was like, oh, I don't know about this whole IS thing or the other front groups, like that I want to be giving money to that. If I'm at least going to get something out of the thing that I'm doing. But yeah, he had more of and they knew like if they wanted money out of us for those things that they'd have to go to him and try to do it when I wasn't around. Because I was like, I'm too cheap. I'm not paying for that.
I'll tell you, from 2009 to 2013, I worked for Kurt Feshbach. And he would even say to me, he's like, yeah, they know not to come and bother me anymore.
Wow.
The whole time I worked for him, we worked, our office was just a couple minutes from Flag. Not once did IAS registrar or a services reg come to the office, even Thursday before 2, to get any money from anybody.
That's crazy. Do you think it was because he set them straight, or do you think it's because they're, how sometimes they would say like, okay, you can't reg this person. Like if they were maybe like a little upset, or a celebrity, same way you couldn't. Oh my God, Siri is like listening to us. Same way that you couldn't recruit the children of certain like celebrity Scientologists.
So for Kurt specifically, I think it's because they knew that he was relatively broke compared to the Feshbachs of earlier years. So, I mean, it's the only reason he opened up his investment research firm for business again. And it's the only reason there was even a company for me to go work for, is because he basically ran out of money. Now, his wife, Kanan, was on OT7. So it's not like they were disconnected from the org. She was on OT7. It was just basically known, leave Kurt alone. Kanan's the one doing the bridge. Just leave Kurt be. He's paid his dues. He's, whatever. He's earned his stripes. Just leave him alone. Just put him out to pasture. Don't bother him.
How do you think it's handled with, like, if you think about people like Nancy Cartwright or Tom Cruise, are they totally handled by the president? I know that like you're not allowed to, like if you're an IAS reg, you just can't go show up and start asking them for money. It's all done, I think, through the president's office. But do you think, like,
if I had to guess, she has a dedicated IAS reg.
Okay.
A la Charmaine Rogers, who I believe is dead now. But they're just real people who have class and taste and expensive, probably drives a Mercedes and wears, I don't know, the IAS suits are pretty freaking nice. I mean, especially the ones at Flag. And I'm guessing the president's office does not reg Nancy Cartwright for IAS donos. because let's be honest, the IAS is senior to the president's office anyway.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
If they
Yeah,
wanted
yeah,
to,
yeah.
I guess, but it just seems like, but it would just be like them to shoot themselves on the foot in that way and go after, just keep hitting. And then you add into it the whole ideal org program. So now you got to buy buildings.
See, that would be an interesting question to get an answer to, is who is her fundraiser for the ideal org projects that she's donated so much money to? Because damn well the IAS regs are secretly furious, seething with resentment
Oh yeah.
at the ideal org strategy, that it's diverting so much money away from the IAS.
Yeah.
And so there's no way her IAS reg is also her ideal org reg.
Yeah. So maybe they just get somebody assigned to them for that. Because I know there's rules
Yeah.
around it, even with, like I said, the children of prominent Scientologists, and they have their person at Celebrity Center. And maybe it's different today than it was back then. I mean, back in, before, I remember if Tom Cruise showed up at Celebrity Center, they shut down the elevator. Like, they cleared a path. They got rid of any undesirables who were not attractive and hid those trolls in the back room, so that when Tom Cruise walked through, all he saw were bright, shiny people, and no one got in the elevator with him.
Yeah. Hey, look, someone's streaming our stream, doing another multi-hour hate video. Oh, so valuable. You're so wonderful. All right. What was another topic?
So we were talking about this whole idea of, when we break free from that idea, from that keeping Scientology working policy letter, which is, I think it's kind of like our key point here, because it's so filled with these things that make us think that we have to do all these things, that we're responsible for everybody. That is definitely something that is in that policy, and a thing that's communicated with Scientologists. As a result of that, we end up walking through the world in a way where we lack boundaries, because we think, well, our mission, it's a real zealot mentality. I mean, like people who go and do dangerous things in the world, when you believe that it is your mission to do this, or that you're even, you're judge, jury, and executioner, like in the Sea Organization. If you get a committee of evidence, if you even get one, it's not uncommon for senior people, or even David Miscavige himself, to just say that person needs to go to the RPF and not even give a reason, for the Rehabilitation Project Force, not give a reason, just that they have to do that. And the person would just have to listen and go along with that. And then their peers would put pressure on them, like, no, you need to do the program because you're out ethics. This constant, like, I'm going to handle that person. It becomes obsessive. And then in the world outside of that, is I would experience this with other ex-Scientologists, and I had to fight the same urge that we had to go in and change things. If we worked at a company, like, oh, you need to do this and this. And it's kind of like, hey, you just showed up, slow your roll. Nobody asked you. I feel like it's like that, like nobody asked you. And being okay with it. And maybe because I was such a, not a, I was a Sea Org member, but I never had ambitions to go anywhere and do anything, because I didn't want to end up on the RPF. That was the thing.
Yeah. I always knew that if I was assigned to the RPF, I would not do it. I would leave the Sea Org, but it still created another form of like kind of existential crisis as a Sea Org member, because every little thing blowing up potentially felt like it was going to be the thing that led to me leaving the Sea Org, potentially breaking up my marriage, and who knows what my standing would be in the Scientology world. So it's funny. In some cases, that kind of contributed to things always escalating very quickly, because it felt like the stakes were so high. The stakes not being the RPF, but the stakes being everything that would come with leaving the Sea Org instead of doing the RPF.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot of pressure. And sometimes I wonder if people in other religions, I don't think it's so extreme, because my friends who were Lutheran, which is very popular here in Minnesota, there wasn't that pressure. That's part of what was opening my eyes in ways, as I got to know people outside of Scientology, is there wasn't this pressure. No one was going to show up at their door if they didn't show up for church. There was no expectation. There was no, give me your credit cards. Let me see your cards. Is that going to be cash, check, or charge? It wasn't like that. It was different. They were more involved in wanting to do things for the community or each other. That's the other thing. And I think you have, even in other religious groups, you have zealots where, again, I'm on a mission and we need to make everybody into Scientologists. And that alone is really kind of a creepy thing. Like, why does everybody have to be the same? I don't think it's that way. And even on my best day in Scientology, I didn't really believe in the mission that everybody should be Scientologists. I still felt that, well, if we're so different as people and individuals, how could we possibly all have to believe the same thing or do the same thing? Why can't this person believe this and this person believes that? And the further I got away from Scientology and the further I realized that, hey, my approach of you do you, boo, is a very workable one, because I don't have the need or desire to control what somebody else is doing. And the crazy thing that happened is when I stopped trying to control other people and control those outcomes, my life got a million times better. I started to enjoy myself. I felt that constant pressure and stress that I was carrying around since childhood, because it was always my job to clear the planet, just went away. And I could just enjoy and be like, hey, I'm not here to save the world. I don't even think I'm capable of that. I have no desire to convince anybody of anything except for the fact that Scientology is a human trafficking cult. Other than that, I'm like, if you're not hurting other people, then believe what you want to believe. If you want to be a Christian, if you want to be Muslim, whatever it is, we don't all have to do the same thing. It's just why would all those different points of view exist if they weren't valid to some degree? And if it works for you, that works for you.
Right. You know, it's funny. I just thought of this. Let me know what you think about this. I, while on staff and in the Sea Org, did not in any way, shape, or form think it was even remotely possible that we were ever going to accomplish anything remotely close to clearing the planet. And yet I was still convinced that even if that were true, all that does matter is that we're trying our hardest to do just that. Yeah. And it didn't matter to me that it didn't seem possible to accomplish the goal. And I wondered, did you ever think it was possible to clear the planet?
The definition of clearing the planet that I accepted in my mind was not that every single man, woman, and child needed to achieve the state of clear and realize that they were creating their own reactive mind and they're not going to do it anymore, but that if there were enough people that could achieve a state or being of existence that was in Scientology uptone, to be a higher tone level, to vibe higher, that the world would just be a better place. The lie is that Scientology was doing that. Whereas it was the opposite. Scientology was controlling us. Scientology was about, you can't talk to this person. You can't talk to that person. You should only do this. You can't marry this person. Just that obsessive control. And that was really, it was all such a lie. And when you strip it all away, if you don't let go of those ideas, even if it's not for Scientology, but the idea that I have any right whatsoever to convince my neighbor that what they believe isn't true, or that, you know what, you really shouldn't paint your house that color. I mean, you can just take it to extremes. It's just so freeing to just mind my own business. It's incredible. It's become one of my favorite things. I mean, truly, sitting at home, enjoying myself, minding my own effing business. I have the best time ever. Yesterday I went out with a friend of mine who I work with, and we caught up for a couple hours. I had the most amazing time. And, it's easy to get caught in, especially when, working from home, to just be home and then be working and even put in too many hours at work and neglect other relationships and friendships and time with family. And that's something for me that I've really been working on, especially now, is because it just really hit me. And again, I think it was just having that major loss with Tony of what really matters. Really, at the end of the day, what we wanted to do was, it was always the simple things. And I found so much enjoyment in doing simple things like going for a walk or going to the beach or going and seeing my family. And thank goodness, fortunate for me, I'm from Hawaii. So going home for me means going to Hawaii, which does not suck. If I was from Iowa, I'd be going home to Iowa. But to see my family, I'd go back home to Hawaii and reconnect with even, that energy of just it being just more chill and relaxed and much more of a live and let live. And that became something that I took on as more of a, I don't even want to call it a belief system, but just a way of living is, it's just not for me to figure out. And having fun and laughing is the best thing in the world. And I'm not going to spend the rest of my life being miserable or in some fight that's not mine to save and clear the planet when I'm just enjoying myself, minding my own business and doing my own thing.
The work-life, is it work-life balance? Is that
Yeah.
That's something that I still struggle with. But at least now it's with respect to something that I actually love doing. Like
Yeah.
I do love doing videos.
Yeah.
And, the whole time I was in Scientology, I never loved doing it. And I guess in some ways being used to spending 120 hours a week, dedicatedly focused on something you don't even love
Mhm.
has put me in a position where I can't really get burnt out, especially if I'm doing something that I enjoy. So in some ways it's a blessing. I don't know. The curse would be I just don't spend a ton of time doing other things that would genuinely bring me joy and happiness. But that being said, just sitting around doing nothing, watching Netflix and YouTube does bring me joy and happiness. So I guess I do a lot of that.
But the thing is, we get to choose. We get to
Right.
choose now. And even though I get to choose, it's been getting easier and easier, but it was years of still feeling like that agitation, that stress, which I think is part of the PTSD of all of it, of like, no, I need to be doing, or I need to handle this. And there's something, again, just so freeing about just watching somebody do something that has nothing to do with me and not have that desire to, oh, I need to go fix this. Like that guy's parked crooked or he shouldn't be parked there. That guy should not be parked there. I need to go let him know. That lady cut in line at Target. I need to go handle her. I need to go put her ethics in. Like I just didn't feel that. And for me, that's what was so freeing. I'm like, park how you like. I mean, as long as you're not hitting somebody, what business is it of mine? Unless you're hurting people. Or your Scientology, which I will show up every day to say you're a human trafficking cult.
One more reminder real quick, hit that like button if you're watching right now. And I forgot, where'd you go? Where'd you go? Gosh darn it. What? I thought I had your channel up here.
It was. You might have just X'd out of it.
Here we go.
We'll pull it up.
And we're not done here or anything, but I just didn't want to forget this.
Irina says, work-life balance in Scientology. Scientology is hassle culture and toxic productivity 101.
I love the toxic productivity.
I love hassle culture. God, I love Irina.
Here is Natalie's channel, Scientology, Life After a Cult. I have to comment on the hassle culture 101 or the toxic productivity. I was thinking I was really thinking about this the other day. If you had, I don't know why something like this was crossing my mind. I wish I could remember what was going on. But if you had 20 Sea Org members standing around, let's say it's on a work site where it requires physical labor. Let's say carrying impossibly heavy steel beams from one location to the other. And let's say there was a machine that could do this in 10 minutes.
Okay.
But let's say it was going to take 2 hours for the machine to get there. Okay. But it would take the 20 people in 2 hours. They would only get done about 10% of the work. And then the machine would get there and it would get all the work done in 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
The Sea Org members would be told that in order to be productive, what they really should do is spend the next 2 hours at least doing what they can with what they have, and not to use the excuse that in 2 hours, a machine is going to get here that's going to take care of all of this in 10 minutes. That if
Yes.
you were to if you were to actually do that, which would be the smart and efficient way to use human capital, like have them do something else. It's like, but if there's nothing else to do, you're not allowed to do nothing. So
Exactly.
in order to be productive, you should go do that thing that is totally not necessary, but it's better than doing nothing.
Mhm.
Now, this is why it's toxic productivity, because what would be better for the organization is to give its 20 staff members 2 hours of chill time to relax, recuperate,
Yeah.
get some energy. But Scientology, no, you can't do that. You
Mhm.
can't do that. This is deadly serious. Only the tigers survive. Toxic productivity. I love that
Mm.
phrase.
Yeah, Irina for the win there. That really does sum it up. Exactly. That feeling that I still will, and I'm trying to get better about doing this during the day. I'll do it in the morning and I'll do it at the end of my day, where I just try to either read or sit and have some tea and stare out the window, just have that quiet time to just kind of let my brain calm down. I need to do that more throughout the day, because I'm finding that when I do that, just even for 10 minutes, for me, it really kind of resets my nervous system. I feel more capable of doing the things I need to do because I took a little bit of downtime there. But you're right, we weren't allowed to do that. And it took me, oh my gosh, 13, 14, I mean, honestly, up until recently to be able to do that and be okay with it. And there's still a little bit of agitation there that like, oh, you have to be doing this. I used to sneak up in the Sea Org. I used to go sneaking up to my room when I was married, so I had my own, we had our own room, one room with a bathroom we shared. And I remember sneaking up there just like to go listen to music. Just for 10, 15 minutes to just hide away and go listen to music. Just a little thing like that. But we didn't have breaks. There was no 15-minute break. There was none of that. There was no like, oh, you have the evening off. There was none of that. And when that's your habit, even when you leave that, because of policies like keeping Scientology working and this whole we rather have you dead than incapable point of view, it's hard to give that up and realize that, hey, I'm on this planet just like everybody else. And if they're having a good time, I want to have a good time too. And if I'm having a good
Yeah.
time, maybe they might enjoy having a good time, because life is hard enough. There's enough challenges and things that will happen in our lives to make it suck. So why would we go out of our way to find reasons to make it suck when we could
Yeah.
be doing things that are actually enjoyable? And I know you and I share this. We both really enjoy doing videos exposing Scientology. It is, I mean, I don't know, next to chocolate, it is up there for me. I love it.
It's so much fun. It's even more fun. God, it's so funny. I even get more enjoyment out of it when I'm able to take something that's relatively small, unimportant, and meaningless
Yeah.
and turn it into a fun 20-hour conversation about Scientology being a destructive human trafficking cult. Like last night with pretty much no notice, I was just so frustrated that I hadn't gotten some videos that I was planning on doing done.
Yeah.
That at like 10 o'clock at night, I was like, oh, because you mentioned there was this funny tabloid article about whether Connor Cruz is taking over Scientology or
Yeah.
something. And I was like, I don't know what's in that article, but whatever it is, I can do something with it. And I pulled it up and I read it through and I was like, hey, any excuse to talk about Scientology being a family destroying human trafficking cult on YouTube, count me in. And when I finished that short 20-minute video, making something out of nothing,
Yeah.
I was like, I'm in an unusually good mood right now. And I haven't been in a very good mood for a while. I was like, why am I in such a good mood right now? And I was like, because those are a lot of the videos I used to do more of. Just, taking something that's relatively nothing and turning it into something. It's just very rewarding. I just love doing it.
I think because it points out the absurdity of Scientology. Those little things that they're not always necessarily, this is the thing that's going to end Scientology, but it's that, hey, this is how they actually think. Because even the Connor Cruz thing, is he being groomed to be a leader in Scientology? I don't know, but I wouldn't put it past them. And because so many things have changed, back in my day, there are things I would not expect to happen. I'm blown away by how offended I get at current Sea Org members sucking at their job. Like I'm not embarrassed by it, but I'm kind of like, why do I give a shit? Because I'm like, where is the pride in your work? Like, what are you doing? It's just like, you're so sucking at this. But that's because there's like nobody hardly left. Scientology is doing such a wonderful job of destroying Scientology that so much of what we're doing is just, going, hey, look at that. Watch this train wreck happen here. And it's similar with even people who live stream outside of Scientology is look at this train wreck over here. They're doing it on their own by the way that they respond. So I wouldn't put it past them to have some weird, if Connor Cruz, it could be something as simple as he's going to join staff at his mission, but run it, right? Like there was that other celebrity, the kid with the red curly hair who became a mission holder, I think in Bel Air.
Patrick Renna, the Los Police Mission, Patrick Renna, and actor Jason Doring joined staff at LA Org when I was out there in the Sea Org.
No way. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
From Veronica Mars, I think is what he got real famous for at that time, back in the late 90s, maybe.
I think so.
Speaking of Sea Org members doing their jobs horribly and Scientology generally destroying itself, you did remind me. The SPTV Foundation is currently helping two specific people that I have in mind who are leaving Scientology, one of which is a second-gen born-in member who we are helping to leave. And so I just want to put a link in the live chat, and I'll just show you guys just a reminder of the website, thesptvfoundation.org. If anyone wants to support the foundation with a donation, we are, like I said, currently helping two people that are leaving. And the information, the information that current members who are leaving are able to share just solidifies how much Scientology is rapidly imploding. So without giving any specifics, I will say this. This Ideal Org program has been going for 20 years now.
Yeah.
Okay. And I can tell you, as verified by actual statistics, some of the most well-known Ideal Orgs are making as little as $1,000 a week. Wow. I do not mind saying, because I think anyone would assume as much, I make more on YouTube than some Scientology Ideal Orgs.
Yeah.
And these organizations on statistics, as far as number of new people getting in per week, the average is 0. I mean, it might be 0.46, but we round down in SPTV land. And new books, just selling Dianetics books on the street. Mm-hmm. We're talking an average of 3 books a week and sometimes 0.
Oh, yeah. And that's even at ideal organizations.
Yes.
Like they're new buildings and they got all the bells and whistles, but they still aren't doing dick.
Yes. And we're talking about major US orgs. We're not talking about, somewhere else. And there was one other example that I wanted to give there. Oh, David Miscavige has been running this a new executive team training evolution at Flag for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
There are major Scientology Ideal organizations who have not even sent one trainee to the program. They're required to have 11 trainees per org. There are some that haven't even sent one because they don't even have enough staff members. Of the available staff that they have, they just don't even have anyone qualified who's available to go. Yeah. Like 20 years ago, Philly org, non-ideal org, 25 years ago, Philly org rounded up 6 people to send a Flag for full-time training.
Ooh, that's a lot.
Yeah. You've got major ideal orgs present day who aren't even able to scrounge that up. Scientology is imploding, guys. We're just here speeding up the process as much as we can.
And sharing it and showing it. That is the amazing thing. And for me, it goes back to kind of what I was saying earlier. Like, it is not even, it's not even my job to end Scientology. It's a job I'm doing. Like, I enjoy it. Like, this is something I enjoy doing. When I think about like the things I want to do in life and how I want to interact with my family and my friends and how my love of because I've asked myself, like, why do I love talking about this so much? And it's hard. Some of it's hard. I did a recap this morning. I couldn't even read one of the stories because it just hit me as so upsetting. And there are those moments, but I really think it's because for me, it's such an act of rebellion. We were never allowed to do that. I was never allowed to push back, never allowed to question. And to be able to do it so openly and publicly is the ultimate rebellion to me, for me, my ultimate rebellious act against Scientology. Because not only am I doing it, and I'm going to continue doing it, but I like it.
Yeah.
And that they don't count on. They don't count on that at all. And that's crazy to me because I'm like, you raise us, right? You indoctrinate us to think certain ways. And then you're surprised like that, we don't take you seriously.
Sometimes when I'm doing interviews about Scientology, I will say what is the most true for me, which is, why am I here? Pure revenge. Revenge against a family destroying human trafficking cult for destroying my family and Heather's family for no good reason. I'm going to make you pay, and I'm going to make you pay every goddamn day. I mean, I said revenge is a great motive if it's to take down a family destroying human trafficking cult.
Oh, exactly. And for the people who, who aren't here, who aren't in a position where they can share their stories, who aren't in a position, who want to so badly to share their story, to get that message out, but because of whatever they have, their situation is, they're not able to. I feel like we do that for them too. And the added bonus is it educates people about what Scientology really is, and they'll never get in the first place because things are already dried up, just
That's
completely dried up. Their own second,
That's
third
right.
generations now are like, yeah, I don't know. I've been on the internet for a while, Mom. I'm not down with that.
That's right. That's right. I was just reminded that, Streets LA, back when the protests started, I remember he started to get criticized for having an approach that people felt would not convince people to leave Scientology. And he said, I'm not here to convince people to leave Scientology. What are you talking? I'm here to keep people from getting into Scientology.
Mhm.
And I think that is noteworthy because I'll speak for myself. When I was in, you could not convince me. You could not have convinced me to leave in any way, shape, or form. I think I feel like I think I can confidently say you cannot convince people to leave Scientology.
Yeah.
Okay. You can provide help for people who have decided to leave and want to leave.
Yeah.
You cannot convince people to leave. And it's like, if people want to try to do that, that's fine. But I'm not going to pretend like I think you can, because I was in those shoes and I know you could never have convinced me. How do you feel? Could anyone have ever convinced you when you were dedicated?
Yeah.
You think so?
I was a panty waist dilettante. But I'm
Well,
gonna tell
you did join
why.
the Sea Org to work in the Estates Org, so that was clear.
Exactly. I'm such a slacker. I was like a horrible Sea Org member. For me, it was because I think here's where I think the difference is. A dedicated Scientologist, is there anything you can say that will convince them otherwise? I don't think so. But I believe that the majority of Scientologists have enough cracks and doubts because of their upset over the Ideal Org program and the money and their children being taken into the Sea Org, that it is getting easier. That's starting to come into those cracks of like, wait a minute, what's happening here? I think there are more people like that because I think in Scientology, there's more ex-Scientologists than Scientologists. There's more former Sea Org members than Sea Org members. So many of us have already left. The ones that remain, sadly, we're seeing they are very elderly. There aren't that many younger people, but I think most of them, you have those hardcore zealots where it won't make a difference for that time, especially if you've been doing it, from your younger age and that's all you knew. But the doubts, the Ideal Org, David Miscavige has done more to end Scientology than anybody. And I applaud you, sir. I applaud
Thank
you.
you, sir.
for that.
Thank you, sir. Number
Thank
one
you.
sponsor of SPTV. Thank you, sir. Without you, it would not be possible.
Yeah. David Miscavige. And then, of course, the commercials and our videos paid for by Grant Cardone.
That's right. That
There's
is
so
right.
many of those. I get people tell me all the time, I see Grant Cardone videos like or commercials on your videos. I'm like, good.
I wish I could do so much more Grant Cardone content right now, but he's getting so political that I can't do Cardone content without it being political. And so I'm just not going to do it. But it's such a shame because, oh my God, it's such fertile ground.
Well, you know what? We're a few weeks off from being able to do it. Like the
Yeah.
election's just around the corner, and then maybe it'll calm down enough. But he's a great example of that similar, that Tom Cruise mentality
Yeah.
of, you're here on the same terms of the rest of us, and we rather have you dead than incapable. I mean, look what he's doing with, like, even with his children, he's turning his daughter into a little mini, Grant Cardone, no childhood.
That's another example. I wish I could do videos shaming him for what he's doing with his daughter, but I feel like I can't without doubling down on what I'm saying he's doing with his daughter. And so I don't do that content. Like, it's disgusting though what he's doing with his kids.
Wait, why? I'm not tracking with that. Why wouldn't
Well,
you?
because then I'm just putting so much eyeballs on his daughter, which I don't want to do.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, but I
You
mean,
know,
the thing is, he's doing it. I mean, she's doing it.
Yeah.
But this is a situation where Grant Cardone and his family fall into me for that. Like, yeah, you're not going to convince those people. Why? I don't think his life sucks. You know what I'm saying? He's running around on jets, living in big mansions. This is not a Scientologist who's negatively affected that we're aware of by a lot of the things that the average Scientologist is affected by. Most of us don't have that level of wealth and money to have that kind of life and have the celebrity and, to a degree, protection that can buy you in Scientology as long as you're still donating.
Yeah.
But what does it mean to him? And it's the same thing with Tom Cruise. Even though Tom Cruise likes to claim he wishes he could go on vacation, he wishes he could do these things. He just can't. He's too busy just trying to clear the planet. I'm like, kiss my ass. You are going around on yachts, on jets, on all these things. I would love your job. I would love your job.
I wish I could romp. I want to romp.
I want to romp.
You don't think I want to romp?
We all
I
want
want
to
to
romp.
romp. I'm going to have to come on here with a romper. A romper with like a Tom Cruise face. And it says, I want to romp.
Was that the
Romp
word
with
he
Tom
used in that?
Cruise.
Was that the word he used in that video, that he wants to romp?
It was either frolic or romp, but my money's on romp. I think he said romp.
It's romp. I can see him saying frolic. Yeah, I'd love to romp. I'd love to go on vacation. And the insane, and this is a great example. Tom Cruise did that crazy turtleneck sweater thing for Scientologists. That was never meant to see the light of day to the rest of the world. And if you've ever wondered, like, what a dedicated Scientologist looks like, look no further than that video. He's not going to be talked out of it. Tom Cruise is the one using slave labor in the Sea Organization, even though he could pay to have people work on his airplane hangar or doing, the stuff that was done on his car, his vehicle, by Sea Organization members. People in his house, right? All the spies that are planted there for David Miscavige. I cannot wait. I hope one day Tom Cruise wakes up and goes, wait a minute. Like, how are you not offended and upset that David Miscavige knows your business? Talking about not minding your own business.
You just reminded me, because you made a joke about people spying on Tom Cruise, but it was real. Andrea Dovin and Tom Dovin were the ones spying on Tom Cruise for David Miscavige.
Yeah.
Tom Dovin was his personal assistant, and his wife, Andrea Dovin, I believe, is who Tom put in charge of Tom's production company, Odin Productions. And Tom and Andrea were the ones that would come in and debrief the latest updates about Tom, just to make sure that, Dave could make sure nothing was flapping with Tom. Everything was okay. Just like they had someone they had people in Lisa Marie Presley's life who every week would submit a weekly report to the president's office, basically spying on Lisa Marie for Scientology.
How can you ever feel like you can really trust somebody and really somebody is a friend? It's got to be bad enough when you're a celebrity and people want to get close to you, or, you know what I'm saying, because you're a celebrity or because you have money, maybe not even a celebrity, but somebody who has a lot of money or means, to trust that. And then you add to it that it's your own church spying on you. They did the same thing with John Travolta. John Travolta went on to tell the media, oh, my church sent someone who was with me 24/7 for 3 years. It was 2 or 3 years. And he's like, they did that and they helped me. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, dude, they were spying on you. They were making sure you didn't leave. They were making sure they were protecting Scientology, not you. It was just presented to you. It's like when you think that you're being protected and the reality is you're actually being held prisoner. That's what happened during those years. They weren't helping you or protecting you. They were protecting Scientology.
That's right. What's your money on whether Ella Travolta and Ben Travolta will become real Scientologists like Connor and Isabella Cruz?
I don't think they will. I feel like
I don't really think they will either.
I think that John Travolta is more like me, a penny waist dilettante who, is half-assed about Scientology. I don't see him being a dedicated Scientologist. I see Kelly Preston, I think his wife was, but I don't know. I don't see it. I mean, I could totally be wrong.
I agree with you. I think John is there for the social safety net that it provides him. I think he believes in the false idea that Scientologists have, that Scientologists are inherently trustworthy and the world out there is full of sharks, which, let's be honest, if you're John Travolta and you've got everyone who's been after your private business and trying to publish your private business, and if you're John Travolta, you might believe the world is full of sharks. I mean, the entertainment industry is full of sharks. And I think he seeks comfort in the social aspect of Scientology. If he actually cared enough about Scientology, he would do whatever he had to do to get up to OT8. And if that was stop touching dudes for a few years, he would stop touching dudes for a few years. He doesn't care enough about Scientology to reorganize his life in a way that would allow him to do the whole bridge. But he does care enough about something he gets from Scientology to continue to be in Scientology. And I just think it's the social aspect.
I think you're right to a degree. Maybe he thinks somehow that, his kids are tied into that community. Or again, maybe it just doesn't affect his life enough. What does he care? If he's still able to live his life and do what he wants to do with whomever he chooses to do it, which he has a right to, and he's doing it, then what does he care even what they think? I just don't buy that he's a massively dedicated Scientologist, which means the children aren't as likely either to take that route. Whereas Tom Cruise is a zealot. If Tom Cruise wasn't a Scientologist, he would be as much of a zealot in whatever religion or thing it was. I think it's just in his nature to be like that. And I think that Scientology fed into the ego and the delusion that he is here on a mission on this planet. I think it's very hard for Scientologists to accept that there's just nothing important about what they're doing. And there's no shame in that, because I think that's the lie, is that we need to have this higher purpose. Well, why can't my purpose or goal just be happy? I just want to be happy. And that's where I am today. I just want to be happy. I'm not trying to save the planet or the world. And I don't think John Travolta is, but I think Tom Cruise is.
I think it's such a great message. I think it's also such a great message for former Scientologists to be putting out there into the interwebs for under the radar Scientologists. Not trying to reinvent ourselves like, oh, we had a fixed dedicated glare when we were in, and now we have to have a fixed dedicated glare now that we're out. No, it's okay if your purpose is just to be happy.
Yeah. Yeah. That is the crazy thing. That's something I came to realize, and it blows my mind. And people that I've spoke to in the ex-Scientology community and even under the radar Scientologists, like I'll float that idea of like, what do you think about just being happy? What would just make you happy? And it is a game changer, because then if you're focused on the things and the activities that bring you happiness and joy, what's going to happen? You're going to have happiness and joy. But if you focus on the activities that bring you resentment, anger, anxiety, well, you're going to have resentment, anger, and anxiety. Right. And having the freedom to choose is what I think is part of the healing from Scientology or a high control group. Or if you were in an abusive situation or relationship, sometimes when you're so used to being mistreated, that's like your comfort level, that if you're not being mistreated, you have to create situations so that you are mistreated.
Vanessa Winbury, just be happy. What a foreign concept. Vanessa and I are going to be doing a chat very soon.
That's awesome. But it's that simple, and I think that is the struggle, and I've seen it too with even people not in Scientology who've been in other, whether it was a high control group or an abusive situation or a controlling family, is, well, if you don't want that life, then you got to do something else. But if you're just
Yeah.
focused on that and that person, then how does it ever change? And that's where it gets back to me for like just, minding my own business. I cannot control the people. I cannot
Yeah.
control what anybody else is doing. I can only control how I decide I want to show up each day and what
Yeah.
makes me happy. I can't control what
Yeah.
people think about it. I can't control if they want to have some type of judgment on it. I am totally okay with that because what people think of me is none of my business, good or
Right.
bad. It's just, and as a content creator on YouTube, it's like there's content, there's things that I want to share that I feel will be effective in continuing to shine a light on Scientology, or maybe help people who have doubts about Scientology and they're thinking of leaving, or they want to leave, or that never want to be in it in the first place. But the biggest thing for me that has come out of this YouTube journey so far has been realizing how many people feel the same, the trauma in the ways that like we went through with Scientology. It wasn't Scientology, but they still
Mhm.
experience that control and the self-doubt and all of that struggle that it causes for people in life, and they're not happy, is
Yeah.
somehow hearing our stories. And that's why I wanted to call my channel Scientology Life After a Cult, is to also talk about life after a cult. Is like, hey, I love Scientology, and guess what? Now I don't think it's so great to not have to save the planet. It's such a relief.
Yeah. It's funny. I mentioned this on my last video, but you just reminded me of it again. It's one of the things that Jenna has been struggling with on her channel. Is she's like, I want to leave Scientology and celebrate and enjoy life.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to do videos about. But she's worried, but people will probably only come to me for Scientology stuff. And I go, yeah, but what a cool, unique, compelling message it would be to be like, welcome to my channel. I grew up in Scientology, and having left Scientology, what I'm passionate about is enjoying the things that I love. And here's the things that I love, and I want to share it with you, and leave it up to the audience whether they want to come along for the ride or not.
Oh,
But
completely.
yeah,
I think it'll work. I love that content. Jenna's been helping me even today. Like I'd been struggling with figuring out food. I don't like to cook, and I know I have some type of block because I think because Tony did all of the cooking because he was a million times better at it than I was. That it's just like something I don't want to touch yet. And I wasn't like, I was skipping breakfast too much. And Jenna gave me great ideas. She's like, just take some yogurt, put some fruit and nuts in it. And she's helping me do things that don't involve a lot of cooking to make sure that's self-care for me. And it inspires me because she makes it fun.
Oh, is that why you put up this funny community post last night? Hold on, here it is. Hold on, oh my God. Like, Jenna sent this to me and she was just dying.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a hot dog, we have cheese. Dinner is ready. Follow me for more recipes.
Yeah, that was dinner. But in my defense, that is a Teton hot dog from Costco. They're pure, they're beef. They might even be organic. It actually is a good product. It's just not like, some it's a bougie hot dog. And that cheese is good cheese too. It's my favorite cheese. But I know I was gone all day. I was working, and then I went and hung out with my friend Kelly, and I came home. I'm like, damn, I'm hungry. And I'm like going through the fridge, like, what can I eat that I don't have to make? And then I didn't even know, I wasn't even sure, like, because I don't like to use the microwave if I don't have to. So I'm like, how do I make the hot dog? And you know what? I think I was even on the phone with Jenna because I think she said you boil a hot dog. I'm like, I don't know. That doesn't seem right. I said, only thing I'm comfortable using is the toaster oven with the air fryer. So I put it in there. And I couldn't even I'm like, how do I get it on the bake? So I just air fried the hot dog. It totally worked. It came out. It
Oh
was,
yeah, you can do anything with the air fryer.
I just now make everything in the air fryer. Yeah, breakfast burritos, air fryer. Hot dog, air fryer. Leftover chicken, air fryer. That's actually really good. I also I have this awesome grocery store not far from me that makes fresh food that you can take home. So it's like a meal, like a homemade meal. It's not junk food. That's actually how I survive. I do those and I eat that. One day, maybe I'll be ready to, deal with cooking and stuff, but right now I am not. And thankfully Jenna is saving me and inspiring me, and that's the beauty of the content she's doing, because it's self-care. It's a nice thing to be able to make things nice and enjoyable and create a home. All of the things that we didn't have the freedom to do. Again, in the Sea organization, we had room inspections on a weekly basis. If you had a television, it had to go. If you had, too many photos or something, they didn't like that. All of that control. And now we can do whatever we want in our homes. I'm over here air frying hot dogs, living my best life.
I'll tell you, I can live on chicken, rice, and cheese and coffee and protein shake. And not only like, oh, I can just live, like I love it. Okay.
Yeah.
Chicken, rice, cheese, salt. I could eat it all day, every day. I do not require a lot.
I will eat, and I'm curious well, I guess anybody could answer this question, whether you were in Scientology or not. I find my comfort level, I would eat the same thing every day if I could. And I don't know if that's like, a lot of times I'm like, is this a cult thing? Or is this just because, a lack of parenting and variety? Like when I was really young and my mom would be at the org, if we weren't going with her to the org, she would leave money for us to go to make our Jack in the Box. There was a nearby Jack in the Box, and that's how we ate, growing up. Nobody was making meals unless there was some family get together. And then when I had my children, I had to do some of the basics, but like I thought a meal was making like Hamburger Helper. Like, oh, look at the meal I made. It's got meat in. I mean, yeah, it came out of a box. I did enough, but or I would have the staples like just like salmon or steak, just something that was really hard to mess up.
I've realized I need to stop shopping at Costco.
Oh, really? Almost do nothing except for the bougie grocery store that feeds me.
I mean, unless I just do better at putting things in the freezer so that they don't go bad. So here's what I realized, and we're just going to do the math on this. Okay. So, for someone who's not overweight, I'm unusually preoccupied with my weight. Okay. And what happens is, in order for me to maintain the weight that I want to maintain, I should only be eating a certain amount of calories per day. But for some reason, I will go to Costco and I will buy 5 times the amount of calories that I could possibly consume before this stuff goes bad. And then I will feel that in order to get the most out of my money, I got to consume those calories. And then I go, but why did I buy it to begin with? I don't know why I do this. And you think this would be an easy thing of isolating the problem and fixing it, but it's a compulsion. I mean, you go to Costco, you want to load up, and
I know why.
Those berries are going to go bad. Those salads are going to go bad. That chicken is going to go bad, especially if it's the already made chicken salad and not the chicken that you can throw in the freezer. But
yeah, those are the things that you don't get at Costco. You got to get the things that you can either freeze or that will, like last longer. I'll go to the grocery store and stuff for my fruit. I personally have a theory about this because I will hoard food. Well, you've been to my house. The pantry, the snack closet.
I'm in there like, gah, 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 gah.
But I have like snacks upon snacks, and they're not the worst snacks in the world. But I have like, not just one thing. Like I have at any given time, I probably have 15 cans of Spam. I mean, it's just like, who needs that much? For me, I think it's this scarcity mentality of not having had it, growing up or during my broke single mom days, is having that food insecurity. But part of it is not having the choice. When we used to go eat in the dining room, we had to eat whatever was there. And if you had snacks, you were limited to what was in the canteen and you didn't have money anyways. So now I feel like I obsessively I mean, well, again, you've been to my house, you've seen it, just like all of this food, but usually it's non-perishables. But then I have people like I'll have out of town guests, my family, my grandkids. I just try not to do the perishables so much.
Yeah. I feel so bad about how much of your food I eat. I try to do it when you're not around. I'm like, she's in the bathroom. Go eat 10 granola bars.
But that's why I have it there.
You know, it's funny for the hurricane, everyone like cleaned out all the local stores for the hurricane. And they got like 8 giant cans of refried beans, like 3 family packs of tortillas, and like 4 cartons of the Triscuits, and like 4 not the Triscuits, the saltines, and like 4 family boxes of the Ritz crackers. And you know, the storm sucked, but it wasn't as bad for Clearwater as we thought it was. And I'm like, I'm going to eat all of this food. And so I made the mistake 2 days ago of taking a phone call at the table where all the food is sitting. And like 30 minutes into a phone call, I'd eaten like 2 whole sleeves of Ritz crackers. I'd eaten like 10 granola bars. And I was even like taking crackers, water, so I could get as much down as possible. And I'm like, where is the compulsion coming from? It doesn't even make sense. I do feel like I had a bit of a food scarcity when I was younger, and that I've just never recovered from.
I think during those, like when we're young, when we have those scarcities and don't have those things, there's something about when it happens when you're young that kind of, stays with you. But I will like, or you talk about like the food, and at my house where I feel like I definitely keep too much food around is I do the same thing like did I ever show you my first aid kit area?
I feel
It's
like
under all the snacks on the bottom shelf in the pantry.
Yes.
It's a giant bin and other first aid things. When I didn't even realize I was doing this, but when Tony got diagnosed with cancer, I started obsessively collecting first aid supplies. I could keep an army alive at this point. It just was something I felt I needed to do that helped me feel like I was doing something. I mean, everything. I mean, I think I have a suture kit. Like I could do stitches. Not that you'd want me to, but I have the stuff to do it. And it was only when I was like the first time when you and Jenna were coming after Tony died, and I was refilling the snack pantry, and I looked down and I'm like, what is all this? And I'm like, oh, no, I almost forgot about it. And it was first aid kit after first aid kit and all of this stuff. I need to have my family over and be like, hey, take some stuff, because no one needs that much, cold medicine or whatever it is. But I'll do the thing too with like, I don't know. I justified it by saying, well, I'm just prepared. Prepared for what? The zombie apocalypse? Nothing I was keeping was going to stop or heal or slow down his cancer. But it gave me something to focus on. I have blood pressure cuffs. I have like everything. I don't even know how to use half of it.
I wonder if that's part of what kept me in the Sea Org for so long. No one ate better in the Sea Org than me. I ate like a pig every single meal, 3 meals a day. They lost money on me. I didn't mind only making $50 a week. They lost money on me.
Well, you would just load up your plate, or would you go back in the line?
Both.
Yeah.
I mean, and I was still skinny in the Sea Org. I mean, I don't know, maybe it was just the walking around all day, burned a lot of calories, but man, did I eat a lot of food at every meal. I would just throw it down. And that's like barely chewing as well. Like you eat really, really fast in the Sea Org.
Oh my gosh. I know. My husband after the Sea Org, he used to say, he's like, you eat like a snake. You just swallow.
Yeah.
But I had to work on that. And it's something I have worked on. And then it was the same thing even with Tony. He'd be like, babe, like you eat so fast. And I'm like, well, you got to eat it before somebody takes it. He's like, who's going to take it?
That's right.
I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. And he introduced me to the idea of dining, where it's an experience, and you could do multiple courses, and it's about enjoying it. That's why I'm so glad I had my time with Tony, because he was all about enjoying himself and immersing himself in some experience. So even eating became an experience. Whereas for me, eating is survival. I'll even now, like that picture I took of the hot dog and the cheese for dinner, I ate it right off that, what do you call it? The cutter thing. Look, I don't even know. The
Cutting board?
The cutting board. That is my plate. I put the food on it. I just stand there and eat it. But there are times where I'm like, okay, you need to actually sit and eat. And I try to do that, but it's harder now.
I don't though. I eat almost all of my meals standing up in the kitchen,
Yeah, I've seen you do
watching
it.
a video or listening to a podcast. I mean,
Yeah.
if it's like a big old steak, I'll put it maybe on a plate and sit at the table.
Yeah. But I wonder how much of that is because we're doing it for survival, because it's not recognizing how enjoyable and pleasurable it can be. I mean, well, we're far enough in the video. This is not gonna be too much TMI, but even Tony, just even intimacy, like learning that it's not a race, it is a marathon. I mean, it can just,
Damn.
but it's the same thing with food. It's not something you just do to rush through. It just was, he just showed me so much that these simple things that are not unobtainables can be experienced in a way that's enjoyable if you just slow down, if you just get present, and then just actually really enjoy it. Like he would walk me through step by step sometimes, even with the eating. Okay, now combine this with this and eat it. Or like when we'd go out to eat, I never did appetizers. I'm like, let's just get to the meal, get it done, we'll get that dessert to go. And he would just slow it down. No, let's do an appetizer. We're not even going to decide what we want yet. It was really dining, as he would say. It was dining.
I'm getting anxious just thinking about it.
I know. I know. It's hard for us because it's just never how we've done it. It was always about survival. And it's the simple things. And like I said, that
I'm always
piece.
I'm always thrown off when they ask the question of, do you want us to bring the appetizers before the meal? I'm like, no, just bring it all. What are you talking about? I'm just telling you all the food I want. I'm not talking about the order in which I'm going to eat it or with which you should bring it. Just whatever's ready.
I had to learn. I went on this cruise once, and I had done some work, and basically I barely had to pay for it. And it was this 5-star cruise to Greece. It was amazing. And it was like, even if you ordered room service, they would bring it like just in pieces. And I remember thinking like, this is so weird, but I am enjoying this. Like, this is nice. It's those simple things, just slowing it down. Like, what other things could we be missing out on? Because we're just rushing through it instead of actually, being present and enjoying it. And I think it's because with our background in Scientology and the Sea Org, everything else was second to our product and our job and achieving. So getting our product, doing our job was senior to everything. So even today, I will prioritize work over eating and self-care. And I'm working on that. I'm working on it on a daily basis. And thankfully, I have people in my life like Jenna and even Nancy, one of my moderators. I'll hop on in the morning, and if I'm not flying in there at the last minute, and if it's like a little bit before, she's like, okay, did you eat? And I'm like, no. Did you take your allergy meds? I'm like, no. But I appreciate that. I appreciate those things. I appreciate that Jenna will like, hey, why don't you just try this simple thing? Like, to make something that's enjoyable. So I like it. Oh, there's Nancy now there too. Yes, you, Nancy.
Who, me?
I'm just thankful for people that just keep an eye out for us and are help to, remind us about these things, that they're important.
Shall we jump through some of these starred comments?
Oh yeah.
All right. And I don't think I can tell what channel any of these are on. So, okay. This is a Growing Up in Scientology one. Thank you, Jill Davidson, for a gifted channel membership. RFS Tables question: not to save Scientologists. I thought you wanted them out. So what did you mean? Oh, I want them out, but it's not my goal to convince them to leave. You can only come to that decision on your own. Once someone wants to leave, the SPTV Foundation exists to help them do
Yeah.
that if they want that help. But even when people, and even before with the Aftermath Foundation, when people would contact and they were sort of in a quandary and they would explain their life situations and all the complications and everything, I would be very clear with them. I said, I am not going to convince you why you need to leave Scientology. You can only come to that decision on your own because you're the one who has to live with the consequences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
people will leave Scientology when they're ready. And when that day comes, if they need help, the SPTV Foundation is here to help them.
Yeah. And you're right. And it has to be that way when people reach out to you and say, oh, I have a sister, brother, friend in Scientology and I want to get them out. What should I do? My number one advice is be a friend to them. Be a family member. Reach out. Let them know you're thinking of them, but maintain that relationship because they will come to their own. They will have doubts because Scientology pretty much does that. But then you'll be there for them and they'll feel safe reaching out to you if you can do that. Whereas going in there, we're not going to go in and rappel Tom Cruise Mission Impossible style into the blue buildings and extract people like that. It's like that's kidnapping.
Yeah. And I'm all for anyone protesting however they want, but I'll be honest, like saying to someone, in their face, it's okay to leave. It's okay to leave. Protest that way if it makes you feel good and if you like doing it. But that person does not need to be told it's okay to leave Scientology. They don't want to leave Scientology. And so that's what I mean. It's like, and that's why even if someone were to contact the SPTV Foundation, we would let them know, like, if you decide to leave and when you eventually decide is the right time for you to leave, we'll help you in any way that you need. Because just imagine how much harder it's going to be to deal with the consequences if you feel that someone else was partially responsible for you making that decision.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
It's so much easier to deal with it, to go, it's okay. I went in this with my eyes open and I knew what was going to happen and no one tricked me or forced me or coerced me into doing this. I think that's the healthiest way for that process to go.
I think though, I probably don't completely agree with you because I think that there are enough people with doubts and those are the people that I would want to say, but you don't know who is and who isn't a hardcore Scientologist. But I know how many years I went with doubts. And then if I heard your doubts are valid, which is something I like to say when protesting, it kind of sticks. But that only works if you have doubts, if you kind of want to leave. But see, I'm banking on, and I think that there are a lot of people who already want to, but they feel pressured or they're afraid or they're scared, or they think their doubts aren't valid because in Scientology, if Scientology is not working, it's because you're not applying it correctly.
Right.
And to say that, hey, your doubts are valid because you're not allowed to have and express doubts in Scientology. But for the hardcore 100%ers, no, of course it's not going to work. But I personally believe that more of them have doubts than don't. So
I'll tell you what, I mean, the sentence, your doubts are valid, to me sounds pretty powerful. The sentence, it's okay to leave, is like, well, like they're not leaving because someone thinks, like, there's reasons why people aren't leaving. I think I really like that sentence. Your doubts are valid. That sounds great. Yeah.
I like your doubts are valid. And I don't know, I still like it's okay to leave because I can remember thinking I can't leave. I can't leave because, it's, I have to save the planet. Like, and again, I think it goes back to like you as a Sea Org member and me as a Sea Org member, you were more like dedicated probably. I was like, I kind of,
yeah.
It just, but then in the Sea Org, that probably wouldn't have worked for me because I also didn't know when you're in the Sea Org, you're so isolated that you have no influence really from the outside world. The only world you know is in the Sea Org. So you think you only know what they tell you. You're not reading newspapers. You're not watching the television. You're just
Yeah.
told how dangerous the world is and how the psychiatrists are there. Don Gloves, look at Don. Thank you.
Hi,
You're gifting
Dawn.
5 Life After a Cult memberships. You didn't have to do that, Don. Thank you. I love Dawn. I love seeing her in the chat. We met
What do
Dawn.
you think about the line? What do you think about the line? If you want to leave, but you have no way to get home, the SPTV Foundation will help you. How many people do you think would like to leave, but they just don't even have the money to get a plane ticket, even if they blew?
I think there's a good amount of those, but I think most people who leave the Sea Org have somebody on the outside. That's part of the plan. When you listen to the escape stories, they're either leaving with somebody or they have someone they can go to. Mark Headley, I think, went to his dad's. Ronnie Miscavige left with his wife. Even Mike Rinder turned to Mark Headley when he left.
I think Mike Rinder went to Tom DeVocht. He went to Tom DeVocht and then Ronnie Miscavige.
Okay. Somebody.
But still.
Yeah. There is somebody that they have, because at this point, let's be honest, anybody in the Sea Org at this point who's been there long enough knows that there are people on the outside who've left. And with the network too that we have, because long before the SPTV Foundation, long before the Aftermath Foundation, there's always been kind of a system set up of people who are helping people leave, have a place to live, have a place to go. And there are people who have volunteered their homes, or if someone needs a job and things like that. But to your point is that, yeah, they really have to be ready to leave. But then knowing that there's help on the outside to, reestablish your life, that's a game changer, because that's a big part of it. It's like being in a relationship or a marriage, and you don't have the financial means to leave, and you think that you need to stay because of that. But if you had a solution, if you had a resource and you were in a bad situation, you could get out of that. And as we know, they are hearing about it, and they're, it's interesting. A lot of them do reach out to their friends who left before them.
Yeah. What do you think about this? What about saying, and I guess I have in my mind, some people have access to more Sea Org members than other people. Like even, for example, in Denmark, all the Sea Org members have to walk like 10 minutes down the street for every meal, right?
Yeah.
What about something like, with your work ethic, you can make a lot of money in the real world? Or with your work ethic, you can easily support yourself in like words of encouragement like that. I don't know. Would that mean anything to you if you were in the Sea Org?
I think that it would. I think I know I didn't even understand our work ethic till I started working with people not in the Sea Org. Then I was like, oh my God, you are a bunch of slackers. Like I didn't know. So I pretty much have been self-employed since I started working. I was a stay-at-home mom for a long time. And then after I got a divorce and I started working, I started, I didn't have a background like, education. I didn't go to college. So when you're in a situation like mine or yours, you get into something where you can get trained or educated in it quick and just get to work, like real estate. I did social media consulting for a while. And when I finally went to, I did for a while work with some other people on a project and realized like, wow, like, hearing from my kids and their jobs, that's actually the better example, is they would tell me like how common it is for people not to work the whole time when they're at work. Like I did not know. And being self-employed, I work so much. And because if you don't, you don't work, you don't make money. But when you just go and you show up and you clock in and you clock out, I've heard that like some people work like maybe 4 of the 8 hours. And I'm like, oh, what? What do you mean? Or doing other things at work, like doing your own personal, making phone calls or paying bills while at your job you're paid to be at. I didn't even know like people did that. Cause I was like, why would you do that? I'm being paid. When I'm being paid to be there, I'm not at home being my own boss and I can be a slacker then. But if you're paying me to be there, You're going to get every minute and moment from me for that job and then some. And that's not a bad thing, but I didn't realize that nobody else was working that hard. And what it helped
Well,
me
and
do
it
is
does differentiate you in the job market.
yeah.
All
Oh, yeah.
employers have the same problem. How can I get really good, hardworking employees that I can trust? And like you just said, coming out of the Sea Org, it didn't even occur to you that somebody would not be working as hard as they can every minute that they're on the clock. And it's like, the fact is that differentiates you in the job market.
Yeah, it does. It does. But I think it's also sometimes I feel that, especially with former Sea Org members, is that sometimes in life, the win for us is not doing the work, not making the bed, not cleaning, not doing all of the things, and just being a little more laid back about it. That is something that I think can be, that just goes back to kind of like trying to find that balance of not, killing myself to get these things done, and just realizing that at the end of the day, like so much is just not what's going to happen. My yardstick these days is someone going to die? No. Okay, then that can wait till tomorrow, or that could be an email. I'm like, no. And you know what I learned? Those are boundaries. Those are boundaries. You can email me at 9:00 at night. I'm not even, it doesn't mean I'm going to do anything about it. But if I do, and you set that precedent, then that person will always expect that. So my whole thing in the last few years have been lowering the bar. Do not expect a lot from me. I'm just done doing that. I still work a ton, but I decided recently that I'm mentally going to retire. I am mentally retired. I will continue to work because I need to. And honestly, I enjoy it. But otherwise I'm retired. I'm like, I don't know. I'm unsubscribing. I am checking out of many things that if it doesn't bring me joy, I'm done with it. It's like, what is that saying? Like, you got to be like a dog, right? You got to, if you can't eat it or pee on it, walk away from it.
Irina Posner says, that is a cult thing. A totalist look at thought and beliefs. Thought police yourself, thought police others, report them, blame them for not being gung-ho enough, self-criticize too.
Yes.
Yeah. Jill Davidson, thank you very, very much. Irina Posner says, it is this entirely overblown idea of this 1950s book will save mankind, and psychiatrists are worse than Hitler. They will blow up the galaxy. 5-color comic book style overblown nonsense.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Flex and Bust Gaming. The cult is a community of snitches.
Oh yeah. That's so true. That is so true.
Scientology, even in the public arena, like the Scientology public, has its former Sea Org members who are like the community's most notorious snitches. Jojo Zawawi.
Oh yeah, even I know that one. Yeah.
Oh my God. And Brittany Ruiz.
Everybody's business. Who was the other one?
Brittany Ruiz.
Hate her.
She was Brittany Garrett, and then she married Javier, and so now she's Brittany Ruiz. I mean, Jojo and Brittany alone could just be the whistleblowers for all other public Scientologists in the United States.
Yeah. Can you imagine how much time it takes to go through everybody's friend list and see, like, okay, are they friends with Natalie? Are they friends with Aaron? Are they friends with who? It's just like, calm down.
Kelsey Arellano, what happens if you get declared an SP in this lifetime, according to Scientology? Do they just wait for you to reincarnate to start over with you?
Do they just, so if you get declared, well, I mean, technically, if you get declared one lifetime and you come back, I don't think they would hold you to it.
True. So there is steps A, B, C, D, E. There's 5 steps to do called the A to E steps, which is what you need to do if you want to get undeclared. And it's basically throwing yourself at the mercy of Scientology, saying, I'm sorry, everything I did was bad. I repent. And you snitch on, you turn in everyone who ever helped you or agreed with you or encouraged you or supported you. You've got to snitch on all those guys. And then you've got to deliver some major effective blow to the enemies of Scientology, and then some huge contribution. I feel like I'm just citing the liability formula, but I'm pretty sure these are also the A to E steps. And you basically just have to suck up major big time and convince them that you really are, what's the word?
Reprogrammed.
Word. Yeah, that's true. You are definitely reprogrammed. And then you can get undeclared. It actually happens. It's actually not uncommon. There's a lot of people in Scientology who used to be declared and did their A to E steps.
There's always a stigma, though, if you used to be declared. I remember thinking that in Scientology, that those people are just a little tainted.
Yeah, it's true. Gina Marie Torino, excellent, insightful stuff, y'all. Thanks, Gina. Magnus G, Natalie, do they allow loud laughing in Hawaii or just a low ha? Oh my God.
Every time I hear that joke, it still makes me laugh. I hear it all the time, but it's still so funny. Aloha.
My God. Amber Vanass. Amber, we're also supposed to do a chat that I have never gotten back to you about. Huge apologies, but you're on my list. We got to work it out. When I was in the cadet org, we were supposed to be working in the kitchen at dinner time. We would sneak up to my dorm room and eat candy.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Karen McCourt, how many people leaving are already disconnected as opposed to people leaving knowing they will be disconnected? Oh, like someone says, I've just been declared a suppressive person and I've got nowhere to go. That did happen early on in the Aftermath Foundation. We haven't had that happen with the SPTV Foundation. And also that would imply that someone, well, there's a lot of ways that could happen, but yeah. When you said how many people, I couldn't give you a number, Karen. I couldn't. Apologies for that. DJ Goldenheart 69. Sorry, Aaron, but I'm watching Natalie today. She is prettier than you, but I did give you a like. Thank you, guys. Thank you. And if you are still watching on either one of our channels, please hit that like button if you haven't yet. Much appreciated. Karen says, Natalie, that short of you and your grandkids in the cornfield was beautiful.
It was so much fun. We went to this pumpkin field. That's again, they're like having a good time and just like hanging out and watching them. Grandkids are the best because you can have fun with them and then just hand them back to their parents. It's like leasing a child. It's like, no, I'm done.
This is a bit of a dilemma for me because I love little kids and I had so much fun with my girls when they were little, like, you know, before they grew up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm no more kids for me, not doing diapers again. And where I'm going with this is like, part of me is like, I cannot wait for my kids to have kids.
Yeah.
But I also don't want my kids to have kids really, you know, young. Like I didn't have kids until I was like 26. I mean, Heather was already 31. So on the one hand, it's like, I want them to live their lives without having to take care of kids too young.
Yeah.
But I'm like, but I want those grandkids so bad. I'm going to be like the world's best grandpa. Like, just drop the kids off with me. We're having a blast today.
It will be, and it'll be great. And it's nice that you have 3 daughters because often I think it's, you know, I feel like if you have the girl, you're more likely to get those kids over. Whereas if you have the son, you know, that's it. I don't know. It's just a little bit different. Now, my son doesn't have any kids and my girls do, but it really is the best thing ever. It's like this miracle. You have children and you think that's a miracle because you like created this life and they're these fully functioning humans who are their own person, no matter regardless of us. But then those humans make life. And I take full credit for that. Like I created life that created life. And it's amazing because they're, again, like to see your children parent for me has been so amazing and also very satisfying when the kids act up because, like, you know, my Kelsey knows this. My middle one, she was the more challenging one for me. And she's Oliver's mom. And if you watch my channel and you watch Oliver, the same kid who went on my channel the other day, 7 years old, and announces to the world that he's going to start a YouTube channel and call it Booty Shaker 9000. I'm like, no, you're not. But I mean, she's going to have her hands full with him. And as a parent who raised that child who gave me all kinds of crap in her teens, when he gives her crap, I got to admit it, I like it. Sometimes I even stir it up just so he will give her crap. It's like payback. Oh, that's difficult, isn't it? Just think about when he's 12 and wants to go to a concert a state away. Let's see how you handle that.
That's funny because none of our kids were ever difficult.
Ah, that's
Yeah.
crazy. I mean, and difficult is not the word. It was, well, back then we didn't know about ADHD, being like when my kids were mostly growing up in Scientology, it's not something we understood. And that was all. Just her brain worked differently. She's amazing and she's creative and she gets so much done and she's an outstanding mother. It's just like it didn't fit with my brain doesn't work like that. I'm a Virgo. I like things organized. And so for me, it wasn't that she was difficult. It was that for me and the way my brain worked, it was a little harder. But I do love when the kids give them crap as parents because I feel like, yeah, you judged me so much when you were a child all the time. I'm unfair and all that. I would tell my kids, my job is not to be fair. This is a dictatorship. Don't get it twisted. My job is to keep you alive.
This is a benign monarchy. Yeah. No, our kids just never did they never even really did the tantrums and the not listen. They always listen better to dad than they listen to mom. But I figured it was supposed to be that way. Mom can be the nice one. And then if you have to tell them too many times, dad can come in and they know, okay, we're going to listen to dad. We're going to listen to dad. But, and other than that, they never even had rough teenage years. Now they're still teens. My oldest is 18 and, my oldest is about to turn 18. The middle one's about to turn 16 and my youngest just turned 14. But it's even then, no real difficulty. It's been amazing. I bet it would have been different though if I had a boy.
Could be. It depends though. I find that I don't know. They're both very different. I have 2 girls and a boy. And there were just things that were different. And then I think it just depends on the kid. I mean, at the end of the day, I really think it's more about them, I'm just so amazed that our children and grandchildren now, in my case, are they're people and they are who they are. And we can influence that to a degree and try to give them tools. And I was a huge believer, even in Scientology, that the most important thing for me as a parent was to make sure that my children were prepared to make it on their own. And I don't know if it was because I'd been on my own since I was 16, on staff at 15, and the way I lived to survive. And I felt that way, especially with my girls. I remember at one point thinking my girls could be dropped anywhere and they would figure it out and they would survive. My son then was younger, so I didn't know for sure yet. But that was so important to me, is that they had the tools to handle difficulties, not that they didn't have difficulties. Because I knew that out in the world, I'm not going to be able to protect them from a lot. But if they were empowered, especially as girls, as women, that they could do it. And that's such a great thing about raising girls, especially today. My girls teach me about being independent or as a female and feminism. I learned that through my daughters who were I would go to them with these ideas and they'd be like, what? It's generational. But I'm so inspired by that. And having met your girls, it's I see that independent spirit and that confidence that they can do anything that they decide that they're going to do. And that's such a neat thing, is to be able to do that for our kids or have kids who are like that. I don't know how, sometimes I don't know which one, if it's, the cart or the horse.
I love the fact that they're not afraid to make fun of me, or that they
Yeah.
And that they're never afraid to say if they don't understand something, or to clarify, or to persist until they do understand it. There's just, it is amazing how they just become their own unique individual, independent people who also happen to get along great. Even though the bottom two were rivals in their younger years, just constantly bullying each other, but they grew out of that and they all get along great, you know?
Yeah, it was really neat to see. I'm glad that they came to Miami and we got to spend that time, but watching them give you crap was hilarious. Oh, I think it's the thing I laughed about the most was like, oh my gosh, this is hilarious to watch. And you just, it's like you, after having had that experience, it's really interesting because now I'm like, oh, we know who's boss there. And it is not Aaron. He's run by those 3 women.
I love it. There's something like with the phones. I just love it's just going to sound funny, but whenever they ask me for money, I just think it is so hilarious. I was like, I couldn't imagine going to my mom all the time and be like, hey, can I have money? I mean, we weren't, it wasn't like that when we were kids.
Oh no.
And now with the phone, you can send them Apple Cash. And, you know, the other day, Brian's like, hey, Dad, I'm going to the mall. Can I have money? And I go, well, how much do you need? And she goes, what's reasonable? What's reasonable? I'm like, anyway, it just cracks me up. It just cracks me up. All right. Amy 27. I am loving sassy Natalie. At Christmas Jones just got mail this week specifically addressing me as a second gen. They want us back so bad. Really?
Whoa, I'd love to see that.
That's interesting because that's not language Scientology usually uses as differentiating between first or second gen or third gen or anything.
I had never even heard second gen until YouTube. And I was even like, what do you mean second gen? So they're like, oh, second generation Scientologist. I'm like, oh, that's not a thing.
That's interesting. Paula Candeloro says, by exposing the cult, you are saving the planet. Maybe someone can address. Do you remember? I don't remember. Like, do you remember the cartoon Captain Planet? That was
Captain
after your
Planet.
time.
That was probably after my time. I am a little older than you.
I will not try to sing the theme song, but he was basically a superhero environmentalist.
Oh, wow.
And he was there to save the planet, but, you know, environmentally speaking.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a Scientology Captain Planet overlap to be had somewhere there.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt.
Yeah.
I wish I had the time and the talent to like make cartoons and stuff about all the insanity.
Lydia says, spam, we need an intervention now.
No, I'm from Hawaii, girl, and spam, it's like it is practically the state food. We love our spam. Hawaii consumes more spam per capita than any place in the world. The most impressed that my family in Hawaii was about Minnesota is that I live near the spam museum. I don't even live near it. I'm 2 hours away. And I've been there like 3 times.
Well, I'll tell you, at Tony's Celebration of Life, someone brought or made or bought basically spam sushi.
Spam musubi. Yeah.
It was incredible.
Right. Yeah. People don't know what they're missing.
I mean, it truly was incredible. Like it tasted absolutely delicious. I don't think that might have been the first time I've ever had spam in my life.
Wow. Yeah, it's crazy.
Karen McCourt says, I found Jenna because of Scientology, but I follow her because she's an interesting person that talks about things I enjoy. Love to Jenna.
I agree.
There it is. Agastitson, best moderators in tonight or today, depending on where you are. Who remembers Aaron's first live interview with Natalie? And look where they are today. It's been such a blast. The way they both and channels grew. Oh, they both and their channels grew.
That's right. Awesome. Yeah.
Very nice.
Our 4-hour interview, which you didn't even know what you were getting into. We didn't even talk before then. We just like went online and did it.
That's right. Old Frizz says, Aaron and Natalie, are you both doing Kelly's Werewolves game?
I am. Did you sign up? I signed up. I don't know what it is or how, but I'm like, I'm there. Are we supposed to wear costumes? How's it work? I got to ask.
Don't know yet, but yeah, I did sign up last night, and I think I signed up on the same night as you and Marilyn, which I believe is the 31st. Correct? Thumbs up, Marilyn. You and yeah, it'll be a blast. I think yeah, the kids are a little old to have me accompany them on trick or treating. So I think that's
Oh, they don't want
probably
you
under
around.
control. Nah.
They're older teens trick or treating. They don't need their dad following along.
Yeah, exactly. All right. This is awesome. Holy crap. We've been going for 2 hours and 18 minutes. That is
Oh my God.
unbelievable.
I'm telling you, if we don't put a time on things, we just like talk and talk and talk. But it's
And
like
it's
that
only
when we get together.
3:30.
Yeah, that's crazy. We have the whole day.
Well, this has been an absolute blast. Before we go, let me pull up your channel one more time, assuming, oh, I'm on your hot dog thing. Let me
A
here we
Teton
go.
hot dog. It's a full beef hot dog.
You had me at beef. You can find Natalie's channel at Scientology Life After a Cult. Thank you for hanging out with us, everyone. Thank you, as always, to everyone who watches until the very end. And we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If